This is Mike Dreyer from Lich King and Condition Critical, and you are experiencing Poppitt's Corner.
Take one. All right. Well, this is Tony Koehl and my great, amazing guest on Tanner Poppitt, Poppitt's Corner. So he's blessing me to use all of his equipment because that stuff I brought over didn't work quite as well as his rigs. So this is technically my first podcast, but because Tanner's graciously one to be able to be my first guest and to use his gear because I really don't think I'm doing. So Tanner, good to see you again, my friend.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent. Throw a little handshake in there because I always look good, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so Tanner's been a good friend of mine for many years. I've worked with him on a few projects already. In third cover, I just finished up a third cover yesterday.
For the reissue.
Yeah, for reissue. And met Tanner at Building Temples of Death Fest. I don't even know the year. It's
2012.
Okay, cool.
Still got the t-shirt too.
Still got the t-shirt. Cool. Yeah. So Tanner was one of the opening bands at the festival, and I was doing live art at it. And they were by far one of my favorite bands that opened up. And I personally, once again, I do a lot of these live art at festivals, and some of the opening bands are incredible, and they're not really known as well. So they play first. And because I do live art, I'm there early. I'm usually the first one there and the last one to leave. And I've been blessed a couple times to see opening bands, and Tanner's band was definitely the one that really was a lot different than most of the bands that were playing there. A lot of it was just like brutal death metal, which is cool. It's great, but you have like a lot of the same genres. They all kind of blend in, and that would be with any genre. That'd be like with reggae, that would be indie rock. So I'm not like harping on any of the bands, but Tanner's band really stood out for me. And then we found out that we live in Southern California and we're neighbors, and so we had a lot of things in common, and we had a lot of similar friends in the scene. So and then you just dropped your fourth album, right? Just your fourth album now. And so how will the process go? I mean, considering it's the fourth album, congratulations on 4 albums. That's incredible. So a couple things I would like to know is, when you were going into making this fourth album, what was your mindset? Because you already had 3 in your back catalog. Did you want to stray something a little different? Like what made this a little more I mean, what do you think of this one compared to the other 3?
Okay, so you've been hanging around me too long, because that'd be a type of question that I would ask, right? And thanks again for having me. This is kind of a crossover episode. I want to preface that too, because I'm going to post it on Poppitt's Corner as well. So thank you for the opportunity and doing this with me. Thank you for caring.
No,
right?
I do. I care a lot.
It's the most important aspect. And I'll get to your question, but a little spiel here is it's really important to care about the community and whatnot, and to not just talk about it, but to actually go through with actually doing something about it, right? Like I know you're starting up your new podcast, with congratulations on that
first
too.
One,
right? I'm sure you don't have a name for it yet.
Not really. Not yet. I was like, would it be Sketch the Soul? Would it be like I don't really know yet, because that's my company's Sketch the Soul. I'm not really too sure. My last name's too hard to spell for a lot of people. So but
you got to put pod in there somewhere. So where are you gonna put it? Like Sketch the Pod, or
I don't
Pod
know.
the Soul, or I don't.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know. I figured I was gonna keep making them.
Sure.
And then
a name will come.
Yeah, a name will come. Yeah,
cool.
Just like
this is like a pilot episode.
Definitely like a pilot episode.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Where some people will see it and most won't.
Yeah, absolutely. Like life.
Right. Well, no, thank you again for thinking of me to do this. And to answer your question, so with Charring the Rotting Earth, which I'm assuming that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, coming off of The Essence of Time, which was our third record, and the first time that we kind of worked together was The Essence of Time, and you doing the cover and whatnot. It was very chaotic, and it was during a time when the band's career that like was really just on I don't know, we were in the slumps and we just had nothing to lose. So that record was mostly like, you know what, it might be our last record ever.
Gotcha.
So we're just gonna throw everything into it and just do what the fuck we want to do.
Gotcha.
Luckily, we came to that crossroad that it was either so back up a little bit. There's a lot of backstory, and I'll get to your question.
Sure, no, absolutely.
So, going into the recording process, so the Essence of Time was already written. Going into the recording process, I had originally inquired to Mark Gheevis to produce the thing, to just record it, because I know he recorded his dystopian record, which is a great record. If anybody else is a fan of Madrost, and especially Mark Gheevis, I personally really dig that dystopian record. Renaissance of Thought, I believe, is what it's called.
Okay.
So I knew he recorded bands, right? And I didn't know a lot of people that recorded in our community out here.
Right.
And because I was a fan of his drumming already, and a fan of his record, I figured, well, he might be a good producer for a record or whatever, right? So we go to him. We record all of our guitars and bass and whatnot, and we come to find out that we had a little issue with our previous drummer. He didn't end up showing up to the recording sessions.
Okay.
Right. Luckily, Mark is, to me, he's the best drummer in the world. That's just my opinion.
Sure.
And hopefully he proves it to everybody else watching, and, you can check it out for yourself. Right. It's just a preference thing. But to me, he's the best. So it was either we get Mark Gheevis or the band implodes.
Gotcha.
Oh, there's no in between.
So Mark pretty much saved the project.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So around this time,
love you, Mark.
Yeah, I love Mark. So he knows that.
Same. I'm a big fan as well.
We're all pains in the asses, but we all love each other.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. That's family.
That is. Anyway, so we got to that crossroad. The previous drummer didn't end up showing, so I whipped out my checkbook. I don't know why I was carrying my checkbook. I don't know. I'm just a weirdo anyways, right? So wrote the check out to him just to do the drums on the record. So because we already recorded it, we already put in this time.
Right.
At least what we could do is finish the record, and then if the band does nothing, I got 3 records.
Absolutely.
Right? We got 3 records.
Absolutely.
Right? Because we worked really hard on this, and I believed the songs were the best songs that literally up to until this point in our career were the best of the best, right?
Yeah.
They were way better than our 2 previous albums. It's a huge step up.
Really good album. Definitely.
So I ended up paying him just to record the drums, and I just said, hey, look, dude, you're doing the drums. At least what we can do is finish the album,
right,
and get it to, at least we can figure it out from there. I can figure it out from this point of it being recorded already, and then working with you at the simultaneously or whatever. It just ended up that I needed it to get done, because it was a waste of my money to commission you and then to put all this time and money and effort to record the project. So I needed it to get done. We get it done. And I kept begging Mark. I was like, hey, what do you think about joining? And he kept saying no, because he had so many other projects.
Right.
He had
Yeah,
Vampire,
he had Squid,
he had Dystopian, he had a couple other projects. Luckily, we ended up playing Ruin Fest 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first. I had asked him, because we had this show booked from in advance. And this is when all this stuff kind of transpired and whatnot. So I had asked him, I'm like, hey, can you at least fill in until I can find a permanent replacement or whatever? And he said, yeah, no problem. So what ended up happening is we played the show, and he had so much fun playing with us, and just the chemistry, the overall vibe of, especially me and Big Cat and whatnot. Richard couldn't make it because he had family obligations, and understandable, right? So he ends up playing the show, has so much fun afterwards. We get, just we're smooching with people and getting interviewed and whatnot. And I asked him again, I'm like, so, have you given it some second thought and whatnot? And then he immediately, he just told me, like, you know what, let's do it. Let's see what happens. And I'm like, yes. Right. Because that meant that we can keep making music, and I didn't have to stop playing in this band, because unfortunately the caliber of musicians that I need for Madrost is not, it's not the norm. It's not like we're not doing, I don't know, power chords, all songs, right? It's a lot of technical tendencies for this. So you need a technical drummer, and Mark is that drummer, right? So on the Essence of Time, since we threw in all these elements and whatnot, it was very chaotic. It's a very chaotic record. There's a lot of double bass. There's a lot of drums on it, because obviously me and him, we were going back and forth on the mix, and the drums and this part and whatever. And Mark just pretty much did what we programmed the drums to do.
Gotcha.
So we programmed all the drums in pre-production. We did that for the first time ever. I've never done it until album 3. So what ended up happening is we do the record. It's very chaotic, and everybody loved it, right? Like that was like our gateway record. So when I approached Charring the Rotting Earth, I said, you know what? There's a lot of double bass on this album. This album, I want to concentrate more on songs.
Gotcha.
Rather than, play for the song and not the ego. That's that's always been my kind of mentality, as it were, where you want to do what's best for the song. What are you going to do to bring out the specific piece of music or the riff or whatever, right? Like I don't need you to play double bass the whole song anymore. You've proven that on the Essence of Time.
Right.
You've already done it. You don't need it. Who are you proving it to? You know what I mean? So on this one, we took a different approach where and with the songwriting was very more simplistic, and that's what I wanted to do on album 4 rather than album 3. So hopefully that's a long way to kind of answer your question.
No. So did Mark, was he able to write his drum parts for Charring, or did you still do the formula where you're going to program in the computer and then have him go play it, play it live?
So yes and no. We always did it the same way. Me and Big Cat would.
And who's Big Cat for people that don't know?
Oh, sorry. Nick Wilson, the great Big Cat.
Yeah.
We love him to death, right? Me and him are the songwriting team.
Yeah.
The dynamic duo.
Yeah.
Which is what it is.
And who's your bass player now?
Mr. Richard Oriana. He's been with us almost 10 years, if you can believe that.
Yeah, he crushes it as well. He has
love him.
Definitely a wonderful heavy end, and he's not just hitting at the top bass string. You know what I mean? There's a lot of noodling that goes underneath all your guys' guitar riffs too. So, and in the mix as well. I talked about it when you sent me the album. They had a really good. The album's really mixed well, especially for somebody. I love bass. And in metal, it seems like it's drawn out, and the double bass kind of overpowers a lot of in the mix and metal music, because we've talked about in the past. But it's a really great mix on this on both those albums that I had a chance to work on.
Oh, thank you.
But this one specifically, I think, like you say, I think it's probably a lot less double bass, so it leaves it open.
There's more space.
More space, absolutely.
Right.
And he just lays down some beautiful riffs underneath it. Yeah. So
totally.
Yeah.
Right. To answer your question previously so me and Big Cat still did pre-production. We still programmed the drums out.
Right.
But we gave Mark the option, and it was kind of a little bit of both, right? So it was more like there were certain parts that I wanted it to stay how it was on the pre-production because it just fit the fucking riff.
Gotcha.
And again, do what's best for the song, not the ego.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what I kept telling Mark. I'm like, I don't care that you can do double bass. I don't care that you can blast your life away. That's not interesting to the listener, right? And if I'm the listener, what do I want to hear? Well, I want to hear a song. I want to hear, because extreme music, we have a tendency of overdoing it.
Yeah, over extreming.
And it doesn't need to be like that, because you're
unless that was the intention.
Sure,
a lot of grind bands and stuff like that, or tech death bands, like they want to put as many notes into a 1 minute as humanly possible, and obviously your band's not like that. Your band's not going for that, the speed record and how many, we're playing at 340 BPMs now.
Correct. Right, and that is also for a niche audience.
Absolutely.
With Madrost, I always wanted to encompass more of a musical direction rather than being so niche that only 5 people like it.
Right.
So when saying that, it was like I said, a little bit of both. So Mark got to do it his way, and if I thought it was shit, then we would do it over again, and we would find our balance with what beats and what things would work, right? Because Mark has this epic tendency, and I don't know where it comes from, but he recognizes certain modes or certain whatever in the song to bring it out and add more color to it than what we could on
a
computer, right? Because that's human nature. He just hears things differently. So I tried to utilize that aspect more so.
Yeah.
And to me, the drums carry a lot of weight, just like vocals. Those are the two focal points for me in any kind of song. Those are what I'm kind of looking for and listening to, and the riff. But yeah, so it was just a little bit of both, and we just found our balance with, depending on what riff he did, that's what it was, right? And it took a little bit longer to do the drums because of our scheduling and going issues in life and
pandemic.
This is pre-pandemic.
That's right.
And so he was going through some issues. I was transitioning into my new schedule for my new job, and I'm like, fuck, this is like very chaotic. I was doing Razor Radio and Poppitt's Corner in the same week, so I was doing all three in 1 week, and it's not easy to schedule things, right?
Yeah.
So once it happened, it only took like maybe 4 days of actually us sitting down and getting his parts, and that was it. I mean, that's the most painstakingly thing, was doing the drums. So once we got that all together, send it off for mixing and mastering. And
who mixed and mastered it?
So we went through Hannes Grossmann, from Obscura, and he was in Necrophagus.
That's right.
A lot of bands, right?
Yeah.
And so I heard, I can't pronounce his last name, but Christian from Necrophagus had a solo album called Path of a Hero.
Okay.
It's an instrumental project, but I loved the overall kind of vibe and tone and mix. And I was like, we need that. Who did that?
Gotcha. Okay.
And Mark was saying, oh yeah, Hannes Grossmann did. I'm like, holy shit, let's see if we can get him.
That's cool, man.
And he just ended up working out to where a lot of these guys aren't very, they're not very pricey. I was expecting like, 10 grand or 20 grand to work with these kind of caliber musicians and producers and whatnot. But I think it was because of the saturation of people producing music that the value of it is not as high as what I once thought it was.
And then it's a world market too, right? So, you can go third world countries. I have issues with that when I'm doing covers and stuff for bands. Like, a lot of people are hiring others from like Indonesia. And I worked with some bands. I'm like, well, who's producing your stuff? Once again, Indonesia is have guys you can mix and master down there for next to nothing. Right. It sounds amazing. You're like, yeah, I don't, because working on my project, for my band, I'm trying to think. I'm like, the person that we use really pricey, and he's good, and my guys wanted to use him, so I'm like, okay, but I'm like, what if I can get it down to a third of a price? What does it really matter for us? But to be able to use him, he's amazing, and just to have his ear as well, his experience. So it's great to know that he's affordable, because in the back of my head, I would be thinking the same thing. This guy's a legend.
Right.
So that's wonderful.
And he's not much older than myself. He's not that old, right? Yeah. And he's done a couple albums, but not a lot. So I feel like we got in kind of early, which is a blessing.
Yeah, I didn't know he did that.
Because maybe in future, I want to use him in future recordings and whatnot.
So he's building his portfolio right now.
But if we get in early, then there's some what's the word I'm looking for? Loyalty.
Okay.
To
loyalty,
it, right?
Sure, yeah.
That
you would
carries,
hope.
You'd hope, right?
Yeah. What I've experienced from my end, there's really not too much loyalty, sadly. But hopefully, you get fingers crossed. And if you enjoy, and if you were easy to work with, which you always are, and so I can only imagine the back of his mind is like, oh yeah, Tanner was great to work with, no problem.
Yeah, we tried to be. We had, obviously we all have our issues and things happen, but I really enjoyed working with him, and he seemed to really enjoy working with us. I've seen comments of him saying, oh yeah, I remember working on this record. This was a lot of fun to do.
Cool.
So, right. And I think he did an outstanding job. To me, Charring the Rotting Earth is one of my favorite metal records ever. That's just a personal preference, and not because I made it, just because that's what I want to hear in a metal record.
Well, and another fun thing, what I like about you guys, especially like your vocal patterns and stuff, or just your vocals in general, there's more of like there's like a thrashy under vibe, and I love that about it. And I know, like we've talked about it, we're fans of music. We just love music, all different styles of music and stuff like that. When I came over here listening to B-52s, and big fan of that as well. So like on your vocal patterns and your style of writing, I know it comes from the heart, right? And so this is a two-part question. One, how old were you when you started? And two, who were the bands, like at least like the top 3, top 5 bands when you heard, you're like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. This is the style I want to play, because you're so talented. You can play a lot of different genres. So, as we all know, when you pick the metal path, it's extremely difficult, to get listeners, and even inside the genre itself, it's a niche market. It's just hard to kind of break into it. So yeah. So one, like, how you get in your style, and two, really, first, let's go back. How old were you when you started playing guitar?
Ooh. I think I was 13.
Okay.
Christmas of 2004.
Okay.
Or 2003. One of the two. I think 2004.
Okay.
Was when I got my first guitar.
Okay. What kind of guitar was it? Was it acoustic?
It was called a JB player. I don't know if I've ever said that in 20 years.
Is it electric guitar?
Yeah. Okay. It was like a knockoff version of a Randy Rhoads Flying V.
Okay.
I still have it.
Cool.
I had to keep it, even if it doesn't work.
You always have to keep it. Yeah. You can always get it fixed.
It's hard as fuck. I've tried.
Okay.
I've attempted to get it fixed by other people, and they're like, man, this thing is tough.
You have to like re-gut it.
Yeah. It's just
totally.
If I was rich, then it would be
sentimental.
Be done. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotcha.
So I was 13 around, getting it Christmas morning, and man, that was an awesome experience, because I was so just driven to play guitar because of me wanting to learn other people's songs. And
like who?
When I heard Stranglehold for the first time.
By whom?
By Ted Nugent.
Okay.
The overall tone of that guitar and the riff, I just was like glued to the overall groove of it. And I was like, man, I really want to do that. Like that set looks so much fun. It sounds, I want to be Ted Nugent, like really bad.
Gotcha.
So that's where most of my influences come from, is like the classic rock thing. So I was listening to a lot of Ted Nugent around that time. A lot of Metallica was one. Slayer was another. A lot of like those kind of bands. So I was wanting, I wasn't concentrating on being the vocalist ever.
Okay.
I never.
That was be my next question. Just wondering how you got into start doing vocals. Finish up what you're doing, but
Sure.
definitely would like to know, like, at what age you're like, I want to get this microphone thing going. I want to see if I can.
Well, we'll get there.
To play guitar and sing at the same time is hats off to you guys that pull it off, man. And
appreciate it. Thank
very
you.
Impressive for
Thank
sure.
You, sir. I think to answer your question, I started to take guitar lessons when I was 14, right?
Okay.
Or 13, 14, just getting started so I can learn how to play it. And this was way before YouTube. And
absolutely.
I had to go, physically to take lessons, and I'm sure people still do. I'm sure that's still a thing, and it will always be, hopefully.
Yeah.
To a guy named Billy Alexander.
Okay.
And he had this like almost digital 4-track thing where we can record on it. So he would program beats, and I would be coming up with riffs, and we would do.
Okay.
So some of my first songs were on that. I don't sadly have them anymore. I wish I did.
Sure.
But that's how I started to write songs, was I would just take riffs of like, it's a Slayer riff, but I would do it my own way. And that's what we all did, right? It was not rip off intentionally, but that's how I learned how to write songs, was through that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a couple years later when I started the first band I ever was in,
which
was Regalia, was the first project. I was like 15.
How'd you find your other band members?
We were in junior high school.
Okay.
At a Toronto junior high.
Okay.
And I just noticed other people with, metal t-shirts on, and I started to talk to this guy named Justin Johnston, and he played guitar, and we both loved Slayer, so we were really into the Slayer and Metallica thing.
Yeah.
And he had a friend named Cameron Nardini who played bass. So
okay,
I was like, okay, well, let's try to write songs and start a band and see what happens. And I'm like, well, so we started the jam, just the three of us. Actually, let's go back real quick, right? So that was technically my second band.
Okay.
So if you really want to go really, really early, I had a band in maybe 7th grade with my friend Brad Lutz, and the drummer's name was Rosie. I can't remember your last name. My apologies for that. But that's how I kind of got started. We kind of just started to noodle around. It wasn't very serious. Like, we would cover Nirvana and things like that. And then immediately after this project ended, that's when I started to kind of hook up with Justin and Cameron, and we needed a drummer by like maybe the 4th rehearsal. We were just jamming, the three of us, guitar, bass, right? And we're like, well, who can we get to play drums? And Cameron thankfully knew a guy named, Zach Cohen, who played, I think, in like the jazz band or something. He was the drummer in the jazz band. So Cameron knew him. They were in the same grade together. And so that's how we hooked up. I remember when he came to the house with his drum set, and immediately, you always know chemistry works, right? We went into the garage, he set up his kit, and it was over from there for me.
That's fun.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It was magic, because
did you guys record anything?
We have a demo called Whip to Shreds, which I personally reissued. That was my first ever recording that we went into the studio for. So
did you started singing on that, or
okay? So we had a gig at my house or whatever. My dad, God bless the man, I love him to death. He's awesome.
Yes, he is.
He set up a full stage in my backyard, like a wood plank and PVC pipes where we can hang lights on. And I should show you the video after we get done here. I'll show you the video. And we kind of were rehearsing for this gig. It was like our first gig that we ever did in like 2006.
Okay. It
was like October of 2006, where we invited all the neighbors to come out because it was going to be loud. All of our grandparents were there. And we're like, well, who's going to sing? And we each said, okay, well, let's all of us sing.
Right.
We each did a couple tunes, and I kind of just fell into it. Like, and there's no offense to any of the other guys. I just didn't feel their vocals were up to par with what I wanted to do, and what I was kind of feeling as a musician, right? What I wanted to have have the cadences to be in particular tracks, and I was writing all the lyrics and riffs. So I'm like, well, I know these songs the best. I should give it a shot and see if it works. So that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. Was I did
about 15, 16 at the time?
So it was October 28th of 2006.
Coming up, buddy.
I was so I was 15.
Okay, so you're 15. All right.
Yeah, so I hadn't turned 16 yet. So in February of that year, right before I turned 16, we recorded the demo. So the first demo I ever recorded, I was 15.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, did you do it just like in the garage type of thing?
We did it out of a place called Stage 1.
Okay.
In Mission Viejo.
Oh, okay.
It's right off of it's like 5-10 minutes from this particular location that we're filming. I still remember the amount we paid, which is kind of strange, right? We paid $360.
Okay. For how many songs? 5?
We only had like a block of 4 or 5 hours, I think.
Okay.
And we did 4 songs.
Okay.
And we did 4 songs in one day.
You did it all live?
All live. Yeah. And I sang and played it at the same time.
Oh, right on, man.
And I had this little cubicle. It's funny to look back on that, right? So I had this little cubicle to play with. So I was playing my guitar and singing at the same time. And luckily we rehearsed enough to where we did the songs justice, and that's what it was.
So when you were singing, now were you trying to emulate a band that you really liked at the time? Because I think a lot of singers will have like a couple singers that they enjoy, and they'll probably pull from each one of them, and then eventually kind of becomes their own style. But was there a specific singer that you're like, oh, I love? I give an example, like Dave Mustaine or something like that, or like, oh, I like the way he sings, like, or the way he phrases his lines, or something like, anything in particular?
Okay, so a little bit before this, I've told the story before, but I'd love to tell it again. Where, so my uncle Greg had passed away a couple months after getting, maybe not even a year after getting my first guitar.
Okay.
So I have been discovering music, and
was he a guitar player too?
No, he was just an avid fan of metal,
Cool.
and he got me into so many, he gave me all my Ted Nugent posters. He gave me all my my Metallica.
Is your uncle?
Yeah.
Is it from your dad's side or mom's
side?
Dad's
okay,
side. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So when he passed, he left all of his cassettes and to me.
Yeah.
And one of them was the Leprosy cassette.
Oh, from Death.
From Death, right?
Gotcha.
And this is before the internet. I didn't know what the fuck this was.
Okay.
I looked at the cover and I straight up said, "This has to be good." Like, the cover, I don't know what the fuck this is. Yeah. I'm like, I'm gonna play it. Yeah. So I turned it back to the title track,
of course,
and it blew my mind.
Oh, that's wonderful.
To the point of where I was like, holy shit.
And you're about 15 at the time?
I'm 13, 14.
Oh, that's great.
And this is way before the internet. This is way before the death boom, when everybody else got into death.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
You know what I'm talking about.
Exactly
right before Death to All and this, that, and the other. I was a massive Death fan, just absolutely massive. And as soon as I heard the dan, 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 the down two guitars, the drums, and then the vocals come in, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, I'm going to be doing this the rest of my life. And that was the point where I said, I'm going to be playing the style the rest of my life.
Chuck inspired you for that.
So he is
I can see that now. Okay.
And I'd always gotten compared to Chuck, which I always wanted to kind of disprove, because I'm not Chuck. I'm Tanner, Chuck, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably. Yeah,
I took influence, absolutely, but I was never wanting to be Chuck.
No, I wouldn't. For me, I wouldn't. When I listen to your guys' music, I don't think of Death. I think of but I mean, I could see how you could definitely be a spawn of, if it was, the tree of metal. And it branches off to Death. You can definitely be one of the smaller branches coming from that, for sure.
I will never argue that, or never try to disprove that.
As you talk about it, looking back and remembering your tunes. Yeah, okay, sure.
Because there's always this kind of stigma where if you are trying to emulate somebody, that then your music becomes devalued. And I never wanted Madrost music to become devalued to death, right?
Right.
Because Death is not, unfortunately, they're no longer here anymore. Yeah. But their music is just high quality all around,
right?
And I always thought Madrost's music was high quality to me, so I never wanted ours music to get devalued because I was heavily inspired by Chuck.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
And I never tried to be Chuck ever.
No,
I might have looked like him, and I loved his guitar shape, so I wanted a guitar that kind of looked like that.
Sure.
But I never wanted to be Chuck.
But if you're gonna be inspired, might as well be inspired by the greats.
Yeah, to me, he's one of the greats.
No, totally. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would argue with that in the metal community. Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. So, going back onto the newest album. Now, I know you guys were adding a couple little extra instruments that normally you didn't add in the previous albums. Like you're saying that you added a xylophone right into one of the songs. And so that was intentional. That wasn't more of like, hey, we're just gonna. I mean, was it? I mean, you don't have a xylophone around here, right? Is that something you had in the computer?
So on Into the Aquatic Sector, we had a song called The Unknown. It was just like a sci-fi kind of intro to the start of the record, right? So I've always liked keyboards. We've always used keyboards pretty much from the second record,
right?
Because I love them so much.
Yeah.
And we did it on The Essence of Time,
right?
If you listen to Dimensions, there's a whole like section on it. That's in there. So we've always dabbled with keyboards and weird sounds that we've wanted to use and incorporate in our music. to just bring an extra layer that might not be there, give it some flavor.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So with Charring the Rotting Earth, I had always wanted to work with my buddy, Mr. Sam Meador from Xanthocroid. I've always loved his particular method of how he does the keyboards and how he writes and how he kind of orchestrates everything. And I'd always wanted to work with him. So when me and Big Cat were writing Charring the Rotting Earth, I knew certain sections for certain sections I wanted keyboards in it. And we went for more of like a black metal-y kind of vibe because that's kind of always been the easiest route to put keyboards over it because it's just straight 16th notes and whatnot.
Sure.
Because you don't want to do a lot of like intricate stuff and then keyboards over it. Just, we're not Flesh God Apocalypse. We're not any of these bands. I wanted the keyboards to kind of be the focal point.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So with Charring, that whole midsection to the title track, because it had so much space to it, it was easy for us to kind of just give Sam the songs and say, do something with this. Here's a section that we need keyboards over. And pretty much either the first or second time, that's pretty much it. I didn't have to keep going back and forth. What he did on that, it was either the first time or the second time where I might have had a couple rewrites, but that was pretty much what it was. Right. So yeah, with that in mind, it was just a natural kind of progression of the band's career. So yeah, and he incorporated xylophones. I had nothing to do with it. I'm just glad that they're there.
Yeah, no, I love them. I play xylophones myself, so it was really cool to hear it. Now, you guys just released a music video for the album. How'd that go for you guys? That's your first music video, right?
Yeah, so we incorporated, we went to, his name is Kenji. Okay. Awesome dude. It's Tsunami Films is the name of his film per se, of his production company. Okay. I had always wanted to do a music video for this song, and I kind of thought it would be too late for us to do one a year after it came out. But I'm like, you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah, I don't think it's too late. I mean, it takes a long time to get all this stuff done, especially you're independent. You don't have a big label backing you up, throwing you thousands of dollars to get this thing up and running. And plus, you're in a pandemic. It's not like you're going to be going to touring anytime soon.
Exactly, right? So.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, we're good.
Okay.
We're good. Exactly. So what I wanted to do was I wanted the music video. We hadn't done one since the tour that we met on. That was like 10 years ago.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not representative of the band that we are now. That was representative of the band that we were then, right?
Right.
I'm a completely different human being than I was on that specific album, that specific tour with those people.
Well, you're more matured. I mean, you're still you.
Well, again, I've grown a lot more since, right? I wanted something that represented me now.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had told my guys, I said, look, we need to do a music video. I'll pay for it. I'll set it up. All I need you guys to do is just be there. Yeah. And that's what happened. Kenji was easy to work with. He flew down from San Francisco for a day, paid him the funds or whatever. And
so you guys recorded that in a day?
In a full day, yeah.
Well done.
He's the man.
I did a great job.
I look forward to working with him again and again and again. He was a pleasure to work with. So,
and then you had your dad in it, right?
Yeah, I wanted him in it.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. It was great to see him.
He was
he was a pleasant surprise when I saw him. I'm like, oh, word, that's good. Yeah, I'm in there.
Yeah, I mean, we all get self-conscious of things, right?
Of course.
So, with that, I can understand his point of view, but that was the focal point to the video. It wasn't the band.
He looked great. No, I thought he did a great job.
It was to represent the album and whatnot. And we wanted, Kenji came up with the idea of doing the violin thing in it and the figure doing this. All I had to do was pick the filming locations.
Gotcha. And where'd you choose?
Where my old childhood home is, there's what's called a green belt in the middle.
Okay.
So there's like a neighborhood, and then in between there's like a foresty area. We call it the green belt.
Okay.
And so I chose that because I just thought it was perfect.
Close by, right?
Yeah, Mission Viejo.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to reminisce the album. The album is supposed to be, it's supposed to be apocalyptic.
Yeah.
The forest, okay, well, it can look like, stuff's burned down or something.
Absolutely.
And he worked his magic, man. He's the man. So big shout out to Kenji and to Tsunami Films if he's listening or watching. But yeah.
Now, so what's okay? So, right now it's kind of a strange time. Like I say, we're still kind of in this pandemic. I mean, I personally, for me, I think it's still going on. People are still dying and getting sick, but there's a lot of shows going on, a lot of festivals and stuff like that. And are you guys planning like a tour or a little run just to kind of help promote the album?
So, are you insinuating that people don't die unless it's a pandemic?
No. But I'm just saying that there's a lot of people not doing anything because
I
there is a
understand.
pandemic.
I understand.
Right.
Just know that I have my own views
Oh
regarding the
yeah,
pandemic.
right.
Right. So,
But does the pandemic is that preventing you from going on tour?
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all, because honestly, it's all the stipulations regarding what you have to do now to play a show.
Right.
I'm not into it.
Gotcha.
Flat out, I'm just not into.
Gotcha.
I'll wait. I want to concentrate on doing a record.
Play some festivals or anything?
That would be cool, sure.
Okay.
But what does that entail now?
I don't have no clue. I have no clue.
Again, what we'll hopefully stuff's not figured out yet. That's the
Yeah.
problem that I'm having.
Got you.
Right? Like,
But-
what's the definitive answer to?
But you're taking this time now to write some new music?
Sure, we're writing.
Okay.
We're writing as we speak right now.
Okay.
Right
Now, are you going to do another full length or are you going to do an EP?
Yes, I don't do EPs.
I know,
I think
right.
EPs are a waste of time. Maybe you
Gotcha.
can venture off with me on this tangent, but I always felt EPs were just a waste. It was, you put all this effort in and it doesn't get treated the same.
Well-
excuse me, as a full length record.
Well, I think, like say, I'll give an example as Alice in Chains, right? Every time they had an EP, it was they did it a little different, right? Their music was just geared just a little different than it was on the albums. I always thought that was pretty cool. And I think some also, when there's an EP, maybe during the writing process, they had so many good songs, you can only fill up an album an hour or maybe 76 minutes or something fully max, but rarely a metal band ever does that. And I always have a strange, once again, you're wearing the shirt, this band Isolation Infamy. I'm grateful that they even came out with an EP because that's all they have, right? I would love to have them have an album. So I'm always conflicted. I'm glad that bands at least write some music. And there's a few, like Beneath the Massacre, like when they first came out, they had their EP. Now, that was amazing at the time. And another band, I was really cool. They're from the UK. I think it was Pork Farm. They were just, that's when Gravity Blasts were really kind of started getting new. And they're like a grind band. That's all they used. And it was just a heavy, heavy album. And that EP is really, really enjoyable for me. So I'm really conflicted. I know how hard it is to be in a band and just write any music and just to get anything recorded. But in a perfect world, I would want all the bands just to make an album, even if there's some songs not even that good. But because I love just, I'm old school, man. I like dropping an album in and listen to the whole thing. And if it's an EP, sometimes only like 10 minutes, 15, 20, it's usually under 30. And to me, I'm like, well, if I'm going to spend $8 on an EP when a full length is like 10, right? Like, I feel like it's wasted space. At least fill that in with like some live or maybe a remix or a different version of the song. Like, I think it's a great opportunity to be more experimental for me. Obviously, everybody's different, but like example, like maybe have like 5 great songs and something happened where you guys have to postpone for about a year. You're like, oh, but if we brought in 5 live out songs that we've worked on over the years, mixed and mastered those, so it's kind of like a full length, just to hold off your fans a little bit until everybody kind of come back together to record another full length.
Well, there's a couple of issues that I'm having with this. Is for one, how would you know if they're even coming back?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's
and two, there's always been a stigma with EPs versus albums. EPs don't get treated the same in the public eye.
They definitely don't.
To a full length because I think people realize that it takes more effort to put out a full length record and take the chance because I think EPs are way too safe. The EPs just don't make sense to me at this stage in our career. We have 4 albums out. Well, just keep making records.
Well, just for the sake of music, not we'll take your band out, but just for the sake of music at the moment, I'm realizing that a lot of bands are just really concentrating on singles now. And then there's a lot of bands they're releasing just all they're releasing is just EPs now. They'll release, instead of releasing an album, they're releasing just like 5 or 6 EPs, and I think that's just to keep pumping music out, because we're in the day and age where no one really listens. You and I are huge fans of music, so you and I understand that albums are really important to get the full essence of what these artists want to convey to the listener. But now, people are just breaking it all down. I just want to hear a song and then on to shuffle onto something else, onto something else, onto something. And I feel like also songs are, you might be getting shorter, just because people's attention spans are getting less and less.
Right. But I'm not that kind of, if we're taking me out of it, your question pertains to what? If it's a
just in general, like I what I'm seeing other artists do, other bands and whatnot doing now.
Well, that's a preference thing.
Definitely a preference thing, but just as an illustrator, there's more people hiring me just to pay me the same amount to make one piece of artwork for a song than they would for an album.
Well, that
wasn't like that 5 years ago.
No, not at all, because of the climate's changed, right?
Now, what do you think about doing a live album?
Oh, I'd love to, but
Gotcha.
it would have to be, without giving stuff away, there in the foreseeable future, I would hope there would be a Madrost live record.
I would love to hear it live. So then you could take like all 4 of your best, your 4 albums, right, and kind of cherry pick your best ones. And so when somebody never heard of you, they can get this live album. You're like, wow, this is on this record. Oh, that's on that record. That's happened. Vader, I think on their second, I have one of their, after their second album, they made a live one. And I thought that was just great, because it's like a best of both worlds. It's like, oh, they kind of cherry pick. Actually, I think they played both albums. It's long. I mean, I have a couple live Vader ones, but I'm a huge fan of live albums. And you guys, I've done live art for you guys. I've seen you guys a few times, and definitely a tight band to easily make a live record with. And once again, it's already songs that you guys know. There's always a different feel in a live record. I always like the banter in between the songs too. I like hearing the crowd roar. I even like to hear just even the subtle, the sliding your fingers of the, on the guitar, or the little mix-ups. I love all that stuff, man. I listen for all that, so I'm glad to hear that it's going to be in the future.
I would love to. I would want one though that is like highly produced.
Yeah.
Where like sonically it sounds amazing.
Yeah. So you
like one of those 70s records, like Frank Marino Mahogany Rush live. Or Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous.
So would you do it like in the
Double
studio?
Live Gonzo.
Would you do it in the studio, just live in the studio, or would you do it
I would want to capture it live as much as I could, but I also know too there's gonna be fuck ups, so I might have to go back in and
punch it up,
in.
That's fine. That's okay.
Every live record does it.
Sure,
for the most part.
Yeah, but it's just nice.
Or what I would do too is I would want to do 5 shows in a row.
Yeah.
Same equipment.
Yeah.
Play the song, a couple of times.
Absolutely.
And then cherry pick the best version of it.
I think that's
so
great
that
idea.
would be another option that maybe I would kind of shoot for more so.
And then
right?
you can take pictures of like you guys playing live. That'd be all in the layout. And I think that'd be great.
We have to wear the same clothes though, but
yeah, well, sure. But
or just pick one from like one night.
Yeah, from one night. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that'd be cool. I would love to. I know what's funny is it's taken us maybe 14, 15 years to get to this point.
Yeah.
Of now people are starting to discover the band.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a strange phenomenon for me.
Well, it's a long time.
Just because I've been doing it so long, and it's like it's almost kind of I'm grateful for it, right? I'm also grateful to know that like I was right not to stop.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
I feel you 100%.
I was always intrigued by the music that I was creating, and it's nice to know that I wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
So thank you guys again for all who's listening and watching this and enjoying their day and listening to a Madrost album and or any kind of music regardless, but especially for me, a kid that came from an Orange County scene that always it wasn't ever easy for me.
Right. So now, so that's another question. So I was growing up, I remember it seemed like a lot of metalcore bands kind of came out of OC in the early 2000s. A few black metal bands. I worked with one, the Funeral Pyre, and those guys are Orange County. But I just remembered a lot of metalcore bands coming out of Orange County.
Dominated.
Yeah, there was just a ton of them. So that's what makes it interesting for your band, kind of coming out of the same grounds as all these other bands that kind of popped up. And once again, when I saw you at Building Temples from Death Fest in Texas, it was refreshing. I was like, oh, I'm loving this vibe. I really love the thrashy undertones for your music too. Cause I come from thrash music. I mean, when I got into metal, it was, Metallica was like the first old Metallica, everybody, not a Black Album. But that's what spawned. And so that's where my starting point of metal was. Like, I didn't start in punk music and nothing like that. I know a lot of people are into punk, nothing wrong with punk, but just the quality of music, I just like, if anything under that, I really wasn't into. I just kept looking for higher, better, more intense, obviously, as we get into, right? So it was like Megadeth and Suicidal Tendencies and Sacred Reich and, Corrosion Conformity, Pantera's coming out, Sepultura's coming out, Slayer, and then the beauty era of like death metal. And that's what just kind of launched me into that world and I'm still into that world. But growing up in the scene, like wasn't too many death metal bands coming out of Orange County that I knew about. I'm sure there was, but when I was going to shows, seeing all the bands that I was into, they're all from LA, at the time. I mean, now obviously it's all different. I mean, there's bands all around. But I'm just saying, like, this is like in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with that. Is your question, was it hard for us to come up in it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I couldn't imagine so a lot of times when there's a band, they'll have like a band that kind of same similar style, not saying that they're exactly the same, but if you're a slam death metal band, especially now, this day and age, there's a lot of slam death metal bands, especially around here. So you can get like 5 slam death metal bands and do a show, no problem. Black metal's crushing it right now in Southern California. So, there's a lot more black metal shows I've been, it's kind of coming in my radar. But you guys, like, maybe thrash, I think thrash is kind of coming back right now, right? But it's the beauty about you guys too, because you can be in a death metal or thrash. You can play both parties.
Right. And because of that, so let me not back then. Let me explain what was going on around this time. So yes, you're correct. Metalcore was massive. We're talking 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, right?
Yes.
So let's go from 2007 to 2009, 2010.
Okay.
The two massive genres that were happening were metalcore in Orange County and thrash in LA. So you had all the new wave of thrash bands in LA.
Yeah.
You had metalcore in Orange County. Two completely different scenes, right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember what was happening in IE. I think that was more kind of thrash based, if I'm not mistaken. More punk, maybe thrash, and grind, more grindy.
Yeah. I guess
so we all had our own audiences and own niches and our own barriers almost. Because like it was hard from doing this podcast and me learning about this, it was hard for bands to get into Orange County to play shows.
Yeah.
But it was also hard for Orange County bands to play in LA without doing this bullshit pay to play.
Right.
Absolutely. And in LA, it was like you absolutely have to prove yourself in LA. It's just what it is. It took us how long? 6, 7 years to finally get an opportunity to play like Thrasher to Mile, which we're extremely grateful for the Fueled by Fire guys and Esther and getting that opportunity. But that was kind of our into LA was like that whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. That was our big moment. But leading up to that, it was like two completely different worlds. It was hard as hell for us to be like recognized as and to take in legitimately.
Yeah.
Because we're from a scene that, to me didn't represent metal at all. I don't think metalcore represented metal for me personally at all.
It represents that genre of metal.
Right, but not metal as a whole. That was not I was craving the more
right,
song oriented Slayer, the fucking, because you can get the same energy out of a Slayer song, and in fact even more so than a drop tune, D beat fucking thing that metalcore does. It's just not what I'm into.
Not what you're into, but there's a lot of people that are into it,
right?
And not to discredit the genre and
No,
the
not
skills
at all.
of the musicians. You know, it's just it's like
I'm not into breakdowns. It's just it is what it is. I'm not into the 80 the OE what is it 808s the every fucking 4 beats just like
yeah. Well, I also think that that generation needed their own style of metal too. And once again, then that relates really close to like slam death metal, right? I mean, we can go on a huge tangent about that, but back to you guys. So what about like San Diego at that time too? Because I know there's a lot of brutal death metal, guttural death metal bands come out of San Diego at that time as well. Now, did you guys ever play down there? And did you guys play out a lot around here?
We did and we didn't. So we played a lot of Orange County shows. We played a lot of Hoagie Bar Michael shows, a lot of Chain Reaction shows.
Yeah.
Occasionally we would go down to like it was called the Metaphor Cafe in like 2011.
Okay.
And we would play with the Warbringers and the Ex Mortises of the world.
Oh man, cool.
Right, and that's how we came up with them and started to become friends and kind of bond more with the thrash crowd, because no offense, we were playing a more thrashy kind of vibe rather than metalcore. So every time we would play a metalcore show, it would be like 5 metalcore bands and then us.
Absolutely,
it wouldn't make any sense.
Same exact. I mean, once again, at buildings, building temples, like you guys opened up for, I don't know, 30 brutal death metal bands.
But there's also different types of death metal, and I'm glad you brought this up. There's a lot of different types of death metal. So there's a thrash death metal, there's like slam death metal, and there's brutal. There's all these
technical death metal,
right. But we should still be under the same umbrella to where we can play together and still like
agreed 100%
be enjoyed. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, not some, but
And I didn't feel that way in Orange County in 2007, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until maybe our first record.
Well, now the thing I'm kind of noticing is that, so when I was growing up, before I was 21, we had the Showcase Theater in Corona, right? And that was an all ages, and that was my favorite place to see any band. If there's a band was going to be playing in LA and Showcase, I'd always go to Showcase 100%. One, it's not LA. I don't have to LA. I mean, it's tough, man. You have to pay for parking. It's usually the places are a lot worse. You'd be playing at like warehouses, really sketchy areas. But the nice thing about Showcase Theater is that A, it was all ages. B, free parking, and C, you can always meet the bands. Bands will always be in the back. So if you get there early, you have your CD. I'm a huge dork. I love having my album signed. Even at 45, I still love it. I'm a huge fan of that. And so Showcase Theater is always a special place for me. And then once they shut that down, and there's all different genres too. I've seen ska shows there. They used to have raves there. They had all different genres, and it was a really important place for kids growing up. And I don't feel like we have that anymore. And I think that really hurts the younger generation, because I know we've talked about this a bunch of times, and you and I've worked a lot of these metal festivals and shows. You're doing your podcasting, I'm doing live art, and and then it's only 21 and over. So everybody wants to buy beers. Nobody wants to buy merch. Nobody really wants to like support the bands to buy CDs or whatever. I always see people just drinking, right? And when I was younger, I didn't drink, obviously, or not even us, but I wasn't really into drinking until I got later. But I always wanted to spend always want to support the bands. Like I had my whatever $50, if that. You buy your tickets like $10, $15. Your gas is 10 to $15 unless you get some friends in. You're gonna buy food, so like maybe $5 to $10 for that, and the rest of it goes buying CDs, buying tour T-shirts, with all the tours on it. Because I wouldn't buy a shirt without the tours on it, because I wanted that money to go to the bands that I love, because I want them to be able to get down to the next next city. But and then working with a lot of these bands, and then realizing a lot of these bands are not even getting paid at these festivals. you know, and I know it's the labor of love, but you know, you at a certain point in time where you're like, if you're not paying these bands at least something, at least $50, at least $10, put $10 in the pocket, there's no way that these bands can last. And then, especially with 21 and over, you know, and in Southern California, I just don't see any places are opening now. I may be wrong, you know, like Chain Reactions, it's down from pandemic. It closed down. I don't think that's around anymore.
I think it is still. I think I saw some concerts posted on like YouTube and whatnot. So it could still be there.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure. But let's go back to your original question with San Diego.
Yeah.
I want to touch upon that. What I started noticing in San Diego was more of a black metal thing.
It was really?
more, yeah, because I remember Damn Cyan was a big one for me when I noticed them. They were more keyboard and
they were a band from San Diego.
Yeah, okay. But they were more like not demo per se, but like a thrashy demo.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. So like I saw, you know, them play and like bands like Obsession that are no longer, I don't even think they're around anymore. But so I started to notice more death metal and black metal in San Diego.
Okay.
And then like
now, were they playing at venues that's all ages? That's kind of where my tangent ran out to. Was
yes.
Do they have all ages shows down there?
Yes and no, because on some of them, yes, and then obviously
is Brick by Brick, is that all
they're
ages?
21 over.
21 over, okay.
I think it's 20. I think that's 21 over. I could be wrong.
I think you're right.
But I also here's to answer your question about the all ages thing. From what I've gathered, there's a lot of politics involved.
Okay.
Like there's a lot of liability with running a all ages venue with beer and whatnot.
Well,
and
that's what that's about Showcase. They didn't have any liquor. They had
so
no liquor at all.
So, but some people don't go to venues unless they have liquor.
Yeah.
So,
but if you're a kid,
well, yeah, but again, the bar owner or the venue owner wants as much money as possible, right?
Sure.
So, you're gonna. Unfortunately, the name of the game that we're in, we are the entertainment for people to drink beer.
Yeah.
That's literally what bands are for nowadays.
Yeah. Which is sad too, man, because I think, yeah, because there's more. Now, for me, I wish there was more cannabis friendly. So instead of serving alcohol, it'd just be cannabis. Because I've had a lot of fun just smoking and
that'd be interesting.
and just watching death metal bands. Because the problem with beer, like we all know, there's a lot more fights. There's just a lot more just disrespect. There's a lot more just shenanigans. You want to just say, for lack of a better word. And now that cannabis is legal, and I will just be more. I'll be more inclined because I don't drink anymore. I stopped drinking it was my third year not drinking, and so when I'm doing shows now and then hang out with people that are drinking, I realize my patience. Luckily, I have children, so they have taught me like a level of patience that I normally wouldn't have had, and it's almost like dealing with children. I'm not saying that everybody gets super drunk, but like when you're repeating the same thing over and over again, and you're not respecting my personal space. You know, you don't have to get all up in my face. I don't need you spitting on me, stuff like that. And I get it. I don't need you putting your drinks on my artwork and stuff like that. It happens all the time and on my tables. And yeah, it just, it also just saddens me too, because, you know, when you're drinking, you're bringing your vibration way lower. And then if if you're doing that, then doing other types of substances is a lot easier to be doing. And so then at the end of the night, everybody's like I say, we did that Torture Fest, right? And then, you know, and at the end of it, you know, people are throwing bottles, people are puking, you know, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so grateful I don't do that anymore. But, and it just, in the back of my mind, like, oh, what a shame it wasn't like more 420 friendly, you know, that it wasn't, alcohol wasn't the main component just to push on everybody. And then, yeah, at the end of it, they got to be driving. So I have to worry about my own personal safety of people drinking and driving, hitting into me, stuff like that. Like, you know, I got in a car accident a couple of years ago, almost died on that. So I get hyper focused on in that aspect. So I would personally like to see more venues just 420 friendly, you know, or just, you know, back something like Showcase again. I know it's money and liability, but we did it before. There's no reason why another place can't do it again. And it doesn't have to be you know, it was in IE. It was in, you know, it wasn't even in Orange County or LA. And I might get it. Orange County and LA, it's mad, especially in Orange County, man, it's mad expensive here. But, you know, if you pull it back at IE, and then also gives a band another spot to hit. That's what's cool about it, because, you know, you can, you know, a lot of bands will be touring. They'll go to San Diego, they would go to Corona, and then they would go to LA, and then they'll probably shoot it all the way back up to San Francisco and, you know, whatever else that tour is going to be doing. But it was nice for bands that they can hit 3 spots really close. I knew a lot of bands that really enjoyed that because they're not driving 8 hours, right? They're going to be driving just another hour, and all right, cool, we're just going to hang out in LA or whatever. I think it was just better for A, the fans, and B, you know, the bands themselves. But, you know, going back, and then playing shows for you guys, and it's metal too, and that's not easy to be playing. You can't be really playing at every bar. Not everybody wants to be listening metal super loud at a bar, right? And so then you're already in a niche there. Like, there's some, and I don't know too many just straight metal bars anymore. I'm not really. And then, you know, like I know they got the Doll Hut, you know, there's a lot of punk bands and metal bands, you know, they have like a metal Monday night thing going on now, which is pretty cool. Pretty excited about that. I'm glad there's at least one place that's constantly playing metal. You know, I think that's important. So what do you feel about this? Like, you know, for you being in a band, you got your 4th album to release, and you live in Southern California, you should have every opportunity to be like playing like 30 different shows just locally within like an hour span. What do you feel?
I'm going to answer this while drinking a beer.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm no judgment on people drinking. Just, you know, my own thing personally.
I'm not going to get in your face, but I'm going to enjoy my beverage here.
Yeah. No problem.
Right?
Get into it.
To answer your question, I think you shouldn't play 30 shows and oversaturate your brand.
No. I'm just
right?
saying you have the opportunity to, if you wanted to.
Right. And a lot of bands do that.
They do.
And I think it's a huge detriment to music in general, not metal. Music in general
in Southern California.
Yes.
Okay.
To not have all ages venues, and I'll tell you why. Let's take festivals for example.
Yes.
Right. Festivals are now one of the only medians to see live music with metal bands or music in general. Like people go to raves, people go to country shows, or there's Country Fest. There's
Transformer festivals.
Was it SX South by Southwest? Is that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so festivals like that, they don't have a lot of metal bands on those fucking bills. Theirs are more indie and rock.
Yeah, Coachella. Think about Coachella. They don't
because here's
bands.
The thing: that music is accessible, and it also doesn't have an entitlement attached to it. Like with metal, I always felt, and again, it is what it is. And we hopefully can change this in the near future, but there's always been this self-entitlement issue where I'm better than you because my music is far superior because that makes me better than you. The bands I'm into are way better than the bands you're into. And I think that deters a lot of people from getting into our style of music. Yeah. So and you have that mentality mixed with 21 and over venues that kids aren't being brought up in with metal. They can't even have the opportunity to get into it.
I can't bring my kids to a metal show because of that.
I think those two aspects need to be thrown out the window.
Yeah.
In order for our scene to thrive.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm completely wrong on this.
No, we've talked about this,
but
multiple times.
Obviously people are gonna agree and disagree with what we have to say here. But to me personally, those are the two biggest problems in my personal opinion, whereas the self-entitlement, ego bullshit that, I mean, why is it that young people are into country and EDM and
hip hop?
Yeah, but they're not into metal, right? They're not into the style of music that we play or that you're into. Or I think we need to encourage more people to take a risk and to dude, if you're into Slipknot, if you're into
Korn,
God bless you. Like you should be able to be welcome into our community and say, "Oh, Killer, you like this band? Well, check out this band. This band's kind of similar." And then you start getting into Metallica's or let's say they're only into Metallica.
Oh, there's a lot of thrash bands now. You can send them off. Yeah.
Right. So that should be where our focus lies in order to get young people into this. It should be an encouragement. It should not be this entitlement issue.
So when people go see you guys live, what do what were you trying to when you're playing with your friends up on stage? What is the energy that you want to give back to the crowd itself?
My ultimate goal is to be the greatest band on that bill.
Okay, I like that.
It's to have that friendly competition, right?
Right.
And it could be I could be a total hypocrite in saying that but I also want people to be brought into it.
Right.
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 But I also, at the same time too, I have this mentality of we need to stand out. We need to, we're t-shirt salesmen playing music nowadays, right?
Yeah, that's a fact.
In order
you're
to,
an apparel company.
right.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you got to be on your A game because unfortunately our attention spans are, few and far between.
Right.
So if you suck one night,
yeah,
that's probably it for you.
Yeah. Well, for those fans specifically,
correct.
Because there's like if I love a band, I get obsessive with it, and I'll go follow them as many times. Like I say, Isolation Infamy. I try to see those guys. Many times those guys would play live, and there was bands in the past, same like local bands that I just loved. I know they're always going to put on a killer show, even if it wasn't that good. It was just still fun to see them, be a part of it, and so now I think you're right because I've seen you guys live a few times. I've done live art with you guys when you're playing, and that was a fun show. I was at the in Fullerton Slide Bar. Yeah, that was really good. I think I have video of that too. But now, do you think that more backyard parties should be popping up now because of this age restriction?
Well, I don't know what the future of live music is going to look like.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? So
yeah,
I can't answer that question until things settle down and we get to
pandemic type of thing. Or
yes,
okay,
just till things get back to a place that makes sense. Nothing makes sense right now.
Agreed.
And live shows to me don't make sense right now for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This paranoia thing and not getting out, that doesn't make sense to me, right? All these restrictions about going to a live show, wearing masks the whole time, being vaccinated, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wait and maybe I won't ever do a live show ever again. And if that's the case, then I'll still make records.
Now I got a question for you. Now, are you guys trying to get on compilations and stuff like that? Do you feel that's important to help spread I agree to help spread your music around? I found a lot of bands through compilations.
The thing that's how we can work together now in splits. Like when bands do splits.
Yeah, that 4-way splits now sometimes.
Right.
And that's great.
And it's awesome because now it's easier if you do it that way. The cost is now driven down.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody pitches in. If bands, weren't bands, they, it's easier to put in $200 to make 1,000 CDs than it is for one band to do $1,000 worth of 1,000 CDs for $1,000 bucks. So
and also easier to distribute. If everybody, if there's 4 bands on there and you're splitting up 4 ways, and then each one of those members, if there's 4 members in each band, and they're taking whatever 100 to 150 of those CDs and selling them, or just hand them out to their friends or trading them with other underground labels.
Well, it depends on the politics with that too. Who paid for the CDs and who?
That's all in the beginning,
correct?
Right? That's all in the beginning.
Correct.
You write all that down, so there's no, as you and I, like I say, we've been in the scene for a minute, worked with enough people. It's all about crystal clear emails and contracts. All right, what do you expect from me? When do you expect? What's the numbers? What do I got to pay?
When do I have to do it?
Yeah, when do I have to do it? What do you expect from me? What are we gonna get out of this?
Right,
stuff like that. So I'm sure a young band, everybody will figure that at some point. But when I like to work with bands, I definitely like to make it super crystal clear.
I think going back to this point that you had mentioned with all ages venues, right? A compilation is kind of like that, in my opinion, because you have to have the big band to kind of sucker everybody else into getting the compilation.
Agreed.
And then, I mean, what I do, so I still buy CDs and whatnot. I'm a CD guy.
I love CDs.
Compact disc man.
Yeah.
I love using that word, compact disc.
Right.
But I've discovered a lot of bands through, killer compilations. So if I like we did a compilation called No Legacy. It was our first time we ever got on vinyl. It was in like 2017.
They had a great cover too. They did a beautiful cover on
it was
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
I wish they would do a volume 2, volume 3.
Agreed.
But Eric is so busy, and there wasn't a lot of love for it, unfortunately. But at least he put in the effort and did something and took a chance.
Yeah.
And I discovered a lot of great bands on that compilation because of it, right? Yep. And a lot of people discovered Madrost because we didn't sound like anybody else, just like on any of the other bands didn't really sound like anybody else on that compilation. So I think it's hugely important. I think we need to kind of
do a little more of those, right? Yeah.
But it's got to take an outside source.
It does. And I also like it when it's a bunch of different bands from different labels, as opposed, like Central Media, they'll do theirs, which is cool, but have be all Central Media artists, which is cool. But they're pushing their brand. And I always enjoyed it when it's just like a bunch of bands. Just sometimes these bands only have that one song. Like they don't have nothing else recorded. You're like, oh, what a shame, because this song is so good. There's a band called Fates Turn to Gray, a while back.
Nick?
Yeah. So I did a compilation. I did a live art in a couple of days. It was like not really a festival, but I did this piece. It was like a zombie piece, and it was United Entities. It was a brothers that did a 2-disc compilation, and one of the songs made it on there, and I could never. And then I know they had like a little EP or something, but I could never find it. But I'm so grateful for that. And it's a double disc combo. I mean, I'm so grateful for that album because it has this one song on there, and it's so good. And if they didn't have it, then that piece of music wouldn't be around. And also like back in the 90s, Death is Just the Beginning. I would love that some of the larger bands would make just a song specifically for that compilation. Cataclysm did it, Pungent Stench did it. Pungent Stench has one with Tony on it. I'm like, oh my god, that's so rad. And then there'd be like demo versions of the songs, I have a Disincarnate where James Murphy, the lead's a little different. Like Malevolent Creation, like covered Slayer on it. And it was just really fun because like, oh, these are really big bands. I love these guys anyways. I already have their albums, and they're giving you one extra. So to me, that was well worth the $10, right? Even if it's just all the other bands were so, but you'd have at least 5 that were killer on there. And then, maybe you might find one band that's, you're like, oh, I never heard of these guys, Catatonia or something like that at the time. And once again, we didn't have the internet back then. So that's the only way you can really, it's almost like you're getting the magazines or you're getting a CD, and then you're reading all the thank yous on all the bands. You're like, who are these guys? I never heard of these guys. How do you even find these guys right back then? And so, when you get these compilations, you're just like, oh my God, this is incredible. And especially when it's like, say, example for you guys, and you were to do a cover that's only on this compilation, like I would want to buy the compilation just because you have that song on there. If you're a hardcore fan, you know what I mean? I think that's really important. I think a lot of bands don't realize how important there is hardcore fans. Metal, beauty about metal too is that fan base is pretty hardcore, right? Like I love that metalheads still buy CDs, still buy vinyl. Tapes are really big again.
What is it you said? We're too what was it that you said? We're too stubborn to let it go. And I think that's
we definitely are.
I'm quoting you on an interview we did, but you basically said, isn't it great that some people are too stubborn to let it go?
Yeah. Of me, I'm one of them.
I'm one of them too.
Yeah,
right?
And it's also, I think it's a badge of honor too. Like I have a beautiful, wonderful CD collection that I've been collecting since the early 90s, and I got some first pressings. And it's like, sure, it's easy for people just to get into metal now and realize, oh, cool, you can just type in any band and you can hear all the discography. Cool. But I'm like, yeah, but I've had these albums before there was a discography, and this is my proof. This is my proof that I'm a metalhead way before you. Not that it's important, but there's a pride to it. And I only have a collection. I don't have too many. I don't collect baseball cards. I don't collect Pokemon cards. I don't collect I don't collect thimbles or spoons and stuff like that. I collect death metal extreme music CDs, and I have an amazing collection. And if I didn't collect those, how would anybody even believe me? Not that that's important, but to me, it's important. To me, I'm like, yeah, man, sure, you're a metalhead, but yeah, it's cute that you're into those bands, but dude, these albums here, and a lot of them are the first pressing. You can't even find them anywhere unless you're going online. So I was there at those when these bands came out releasing them. I bought them there, have them sign it. Once again, proof that I had it. And I love all different genres of music. Like, when I go see other bands, like a lot of EDM bands, I do a lot of live art at transformative festivals, and some DJs are just amazing. I'm like, do you guys have a CD? I know it's weird to say or anything. And they're like, oh, you can find us on SoundCloud. I'm like, I don't even know your name. Do you have a sticker? Because I'm not going to remember, and I'm just grateful that metal still releases physical content.
Well, the problem with digital for me, one of the main reasons why I still collect is because the genre of music, I like technical thrash metal.
Yeah.
It's like a total niche. It was made from like 88 to like 93. And then obviously there's bands that still do it today. Like I would put us in that category.
Right.
We do like I think we got called progressive death thrash. So that's a
badge
of honor.
I could totally see that. Yeah, totally. I could. Yeah. So remember back in MySpace days when you had to hit each different genres, like three different genres.
Right.
I could totally see that.
Right. People have said, yeah, Madrost is a progressive death thrash band.
What a great compliment.
I'm like, okay, we didn't start this genre. This genre has existed. There are a lot of progressive death metal or progressive death thrash bands that were from the 90s, and those are the bands that I like to collect, dude.
Yeah.
The problem is that stuff is not on Spotify's or any of the streaming services.
Or YouTube.
Sure. Well, yeah, but I want to physically own it. So in case if I'm craving that record and I don't have it in my collection, I'm not going to listen to it in my car, at least in my car, on the streaming thing, because I don't like streaming.
And I don't like commercials. I can't stand commercials. I'm not gonna. I know people like pay for Spotify, and
I'm not doing that either.
I don't do that either, man. I'm like, you know what? First of all, if the artists were getting the money, like really getting the money they deserve, instead of the guy that owns Spotify or whatever, that you're making that guy a billionaire. You're not making the bands any money. And so I'm like, I don't want to support that dude. And like it's cool. Like if you have Amazon, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can listen to music there, and that's cool. But I enjoy popping a CD in my car. I just love it. I'm just like, oh, cool. I'm gonna jam this one CD out until I get tired of listening to it. And if I do streaming, I don't want to hear commercials. Every time I hear a commercial, I just want to bite my lip and punch the screen. Like I don't want it. I can't. You're taking me out of my journey. You're taking me out of like. It's like you're running a marathon and all of a sudden you gotta stop. Like I don't want to listen to your BI. The stuff that you're telling me, I would never buy anyways. You're wasting my life. So yeah. And then now when you go, I go to thrift stores and you get them for like $1 or $2, and I'm finding bands I never would come across. And I'm like, this is so much fun. Because I mean, to me, I don't think a CD should be more than $10. Like, and you got CD places that are still selling like $16, $17, $18. I'm like, yo, 90s are over, man. Like, I know how much it doesn't cost that much to make a CD. Like, costs like $1, right? If you're making, say, 1,000 of them.
Dude, it depends how many you press.
How many you press? Oh, absolutely. My band pressed 500 of them, so it costs a lot more to make those CDs as opposed to like you're gonna press like 10,000 of these or bigger artists. It's to like a nickel.
Right. So some of the CDs I've gotten, there's a pressing of 100.
Okay,
right? So I'll pay $15.
Oh, I would pay $20 for something like that because it's a limited edition, and especially if it's first pressing. And as a collector, I want it. I want it in my collection. I'm bragging because there's once again, only metalheads care about a metal collection. Like I go to come over here, I like to look through all these bands. I never heard of this band, and you pull out and it's cool too because you can pull it out, look at the cover, and you're like, or like, oh, this is rad. But only other metalheads are impressed with CD collections. Like I bring other people over, and they might be into pop music or might be into whatever other genre, and they're like, oh, this is an impressive CD collection. But not like a metalhead. When they come over here, come over to my place, and they open it up, I'm like, hey, can I show you some really cool stuff? And they're just there for like 20 minutes, just trying to take it all in. Like, oh my God, you have this. And I love the enthusiasm they get. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one excited about this. This is super cool. And it's fun to share it, but it's very rare, man. For me, it's very rare to be able to share that love and passion for physically collecting stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with records that you've never seen a pressing of.
Yeah.
I remember
Absolutely.
holding a Sacrilege record. Sacrilege is a New York, or no, sorry, not New York. They're an English like crust punk band.
Okay.
Amazing.
Cool.
Pretty much both are kind of he stole their whole sound.
Okay.
That's where the singer is like that's his favorite band or whatever. But anyway, I saw an original pressing in like Bionic Records, and it was on vinyl. And I'm like, dude, I've never seen that in person. Can I hold it? He's like, yeah. He brought it down. I'm like, it's like $150 record.
Sure.
And I'm like, can I take it out? He's like, yeah. I took it out. I'm like, dude, I'm never going to be able to hold this again.
No, yeah.
So I'm like, thank you so much. At least I got to do that. I'm like, holy shit, because I've never seen an original pressing of that in real life. So, it's I still get enthusiastic about that kind of stuff,
Well, I remember, I don't know if it was the last time I was over here or the time before that, but you showed me the record with Les Claypool, where it was like
oh yeah, Blind Illusion.
Blind Illusion. Yeah, that was really cool, man.
I love that album.
Because I didn't know, and but once again, it's like if you'd have brought it up online, it's like, okay, that's cool, that's fine. But like when you have something tangible you can hold, awesome. Like, oh, what is this? Well, you're looking around like, oh, this is super cool. Look at the artwork. I don't know, man. And it saddens me. I feel like it's a dying art, man. But once again, metalheads keep it alive, and I think it's great. And I also love that more bands. And that was the next thing I'm about to bring to you as well, is that because now you have 4 albums, now you can just start doing like box sets, right, and stuff like that. I think, like Nile, like I was over a friend's house and they had like this tin pyramid, right? And you pop it out and there's like the CD in there and it has all this extra fun stuff in there. I'm such a sucker and nerd for all that. And I think it's cool, man. Especially if you have a theme.
The problem with this, and I know it's kind of cool. Like where
it's like the collector's edition.
It's kind of cool where I'm at personally in my journey of music, right? We have 4 albums that are beloved by 4 different kinds of people.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody has their favorite album from us. Sure. Some people like them all. But I've also been finding this audience that like wants everything. They want the whole, they want like when the band self-released our stuff, like that means more to them now than like just getting it a different pressing of it or something. I'm like, okay, like I can dig that because that's the kind of collector I am.
Do you have demos? Do you have
We do, but this is my other point to your thing with box sets. I feel all of our demos are complete dog shit.
Gotcha. I feel.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, no, that's respectable, man. I get it. I get it.
But if people want them, then I'll happily just give it.
Collectors. Well, they want to support too, right? So the idea is like, sure, you can download it. Right. I download music all the time.
You can't download it. There's
no, but I'm just saying in general. But if there's a band that I love, and I'm like, yo, man, if I can just give them $10 and hopefully it goes to them and not the label, like I just my appreciation, how much love I have for it. Right. And when I become a fan of a band, I'm super fan. Like I want to hear the live stuff. I want to hear the demo. I want to hear like if the lead's a little different. Stuff like I want to hear how the song got structured from the beginning until it became on the album. Even for I'm super fan for my band, obviously because it's my band. But I love listening to the old stuff because it's a lot different than what we did on the album. And I'm so grateful that I did it myself, recorded it. Just a video, right? And just to see, I'm glad we didn't record it like this. This is not that good. I don't really want to show it to anybody, but we had to start somewhere, right? And I also feel like it humbles the band too. It doesn't, it makes it more human as opposed like these guys are just geniuses. They come, necrophagists or something like that. I'm like they got to have demos when they first kind of starting the riffs and. I have a bunch of old Nirvana stuff like that because another nice thing when a band becomes so popular. All that kind of comes out and you're like, oh, I want to hear like
but I always felt like with, and again going back to me personally, if I released that stuff, it would devalue the band. I don't want it to devalue the band. Well, that's my ultimate kind of fear is to like have put something out that devalues us to where we've gotten to this point. Like
Well-
any of our old stuff, I mean, you kind of, if you're a collector, right, and you want all the old stuff just to have have it in your collection, maybe they won't ever listen to it,
but just say they
but
have
just
it.
to say they
Right.
have it, I totally dig that.
Yeah.
But like,
You would want something to you would want nobody to never heard of
I don't
you
want
guys.
people to judge us off a
Well,
demo.
yeah, never heard of you guys. Listen to the demo, like this band's terrible.
This band's terrible.
Yeah,
What the fuck is
I
everybody
could feel you on
talking
that. I
about?
could totally feel you on
Right?
that. For sure. That's respectable, man.
Like,
Yeah.
it's but at the same time, maybe I just need to let that insecurity go and just put it out to the world. And if you like it, great. If you don't, great.
Like I say, man, just give it a few years, and when you guys have your box set,
when I like that you're saying when, I would love to have a
when
box
you
set.
guys have your box set, and then just think about it now when you're writing your new stuff. Try to make some fun demos of it. When you guys, when you have Mark and everybody else, and when Mark's trying to figure out some of his drum stuff, that's for me, especially as a drummer, I love that. Like,
what's funny is I got a lot of video stuff.
Cool.
Not necessarily audio, but I got a lot of making. We did like a making of for like Essence of Time. We did making of.
So you're coming out with the DVD. That's all I'm hearing. when the DVD and so the DVD can come with the box set, right?
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. We made one for Aquatic as well.
Yeah. It's important. It's super important. Like super fans need.
And I took it off of YouTube and whatnot, so it's no longer available on that stuff because I don't know, I might want to do something with it later or not at all. So
we'll keep it available. Just to have the option. More content, the better. That's kind of one thing I'm learning is that more content, the better. Like me, I don't like really showing people when I'm working on a project, when I'm working on a drawing or a painting. Like I try to do it just because I know they always say, oh, you're supposed to be streaming all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, but I go through a lot of changes on the art. So when I first start, once again, like a demo, like a sketch is like a demo to me. Like this, from the sketch to the final rendering, there's a lot of ups and downs.
But would you want that sketch to represent your entire career?
No, absolutely not. But I've been out long enough where I can show my sketch. Because eventually, if I ever do come out with this book, I want to do, I'm definitely putting thumbnails and sketches in there. Once again, just so people and younger artists can be like, oh yeah, his sketches ain't all fully rendered. My sketches are super loose. Yeah, as you know, like they're real. They're not. I have some friends that they render every little bit. I'm like, that's cool that you do that. I don't have that type of attention span. Like, because I much rather take that time to render it in the final piece. And no disrespect to anybody that does that. It's just we all work differently. And I've been during the pandemic, I've been going through all of my portfolios. I had like 7 of them. And so I took one day, I pulled every piece of artwork out, and I'm like, all right, all my college stuff is going to be in this one. All my personal artwork is going to be in this one. All my prints and stuff like that are going to be in this one. All the stuff I've done for bands are going to be in this one. All the which even including thumbnails and stuff like that. All the kind of just random weird art that I'm never going to show, that's going to be in this portfolio. So I have like 7 different portfolios.
Would you do a section with like unreleased stuff? That's
absolutely. That's what's going to sell the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have a few of those pieces where it's not online. I'm not going to ever put it online. You have to buy the book. And if somebody buys a book, then puts it online, well, that I have no, I can't do anything. I have no control over that. But at least in the beginning of it, there'll be, I want to put like 5, maybe 10 pieces that maybe I shouldn't say that, but maybe like 3, because I don't have, time is of the essence, right? Like
no pun intended.
Yeah,
right?
no pun intended, but it's hard not really hard. It just, I'm not as disciplined as I should be. Is all right. So every day, you block out your time, because I just wake up, check my emails and what project do I work on, and I try to work on that project as long as I can until I get tired and frustrated, and then shove that away and then work on something for myself. Have dinner and go to bed and start that over and over again. Sometimes I lag, sometimes I'm on social media too long, but I feel like also I'm learning a lot of things also on social media, how other people are doing it, just other weird random fun stuff, and see like when I know bands that I'm following are working on an album or something, I'll hit them up. Hey, you guys have your cover artist picked out yet? If not, no, whatever. Just I'm a fan, would like to work with you. If not, no big deal. No harm, no foul. So I use it as a business as well. And like I say, there's some really cool things online. It's a tool. It's either it's entertainment or a tool. It's just how you use anything.
But do you let that? I feel like I'm interviewing you now. But do you let that consume you?
I try not to.
Okay,
I try not to. It can easily.
Because I've found now with me like not being on social media all day, every day anymore. I found that I have an actual life that I like enjoy
and more
doing.
time. Absolutely, I agree. I totally agree. So I try to limit it, like in the morning, right? So I'll go and make whatever I've made or whatever. Again, a lot of times I can't show the artwork until the client, and so I have a back catalog of artwork I can't show. So it's really frustrating on my end. So that's why I like making leather stuff, because like this weekend I busted out like 5 paddles, in a day and a half. And so I'm able to show that. And then I already got, just on TikTok alone, collectively, probably already 5,000 views on all of that, and so because you still have to be making content. That's the day and age we live in. As an artist, as a visual artist, I
see that's where the difference. Obviously, this is where the difference lies between me and you.
Yeah.
I don't care about that.
Yeah,
stuff.
but I freelance, so I have to let people know that I exist.
This is your business.
Yeah, this is my business.
Right.
Yeah,
that's again. There's no disrespect here, but I'm just telling you. There's 2 types of kind of artists. There's artists. Again, there's no. Don't take this personally or whatever. No. But you have your reasons for doing it, right?
Right.
I have my reasons for not doing it, right?
Right.
So I feel that it's quality over quantity for me.
Sure.
Okay, it's I'd much rather do what I do because I enjoy doing it, and I don't want it to be a job. And that's the main difference that I've seen happen so many times with bands and whatnot. Well, it's like it becomes their job, and then they're fucking miserable.
True. Now, question for you. Now, if you're not going to be playing shows, how do you like share your music? How do you promote?
Well,
for yourself.
I mean, that's why I do the podcast, and gotcha. I enjoy doing the podcast. I promote here, and
do you promote any other platforms like TikTok or like Discord, Twitch?
We're on like the streaming platforms if people like that stuff. But honestly, like maybe I'm just too selfish for everybody. But I do it for me. I do whatever it is that I need to do because I want it to exist, not because I have to do it.
Now, question for you: when you guys get together, those rare moments you guys actually get as a band can come together and jam. Do you guys stream that live? Like you say, hey guys, we're gonna practice. We're gonna whatever, just warm up. And you're like, hey, at one point in time, let's play once. You just film it. We
film it for ourselves, and then if we ever wanted to release it, we could.
Gotcha. But you don't say, all right, we're gonna jam at the end of the night. We're gonna play one song, but we're gonna play it live streaming just to maybe get your fans interactive. Like, oh my god, because as a fan, once again, I'm just speaking as a fan. So if I get to see my band that I really love play live, and I can type in, hey guys, oh, it's Tony, I'm super glad, I love this song, blah blah blah, yada yada. And then after that, the band comes and checks it out. Hey Tony, how you doing? Or oh, hey Bill, or hey Gloria, or whomever, just so it just engages with your fans more. Do you guys ever think about
I would love to, and to be honest with you, I kind of forget that we have fans because I've been doing it so long to where we never had fans like that. You know what I mean? Like ever since we got signed to No Life to Metal Records, it's been a godsend for us.
How so? How they've been?
Because it's opened us up to a whole new audience to where now we're taken legitimately.
Gotcha.
Do you remember our conversation a little bit ago where I said EPs are a waste of time?
Sure.
Because it's people value it. They value it less than a full length.
I agree.
It's kind of like that with being on a record label, like doing it all yourselves. Like people want that shit to happen.
Yeah.
But then once you get signed to a label, it's like, okay, now they're legit.
Got you.
I'm like, we've been the same for
right.
Where were you?
Smoke and mirrors, right?
Right.
Right.
I'm not trying to be hurtful to any of our fans. I'm totally grateful for it.
Yeah.
I'm just not used to it.
Sure.
I'm used to being the guy that still has to climb a hill, and I still do, but it's like I'm not used to people interacting with me. Like people think that I'm gonna pull back the curtain a little bit and hopefully not devalue me, but I'm rarely hit up for stuff. I'm rarely hit up for when I do a good podcast or whatnot, or really hit up for
or to play live shows and stuff like that.
Well,
or...
that too, but also like, like musically wise, like I hardly ever get kind of hit up where, somebody will hit up and say, "Hey man, I just really want to say like, your music means a lot to me. Like, thank you so." I never get that stuff, and it's not. It's no. I don't. It's no knock to anybody else, right? I'm just telling you from personal experiences that rarely happens for me. So I keep forgetting that we have fans.
Right. It's super relatable. I have some other artist friends that say the same thing. Like every time we post something
I don't know what my music means to anybody. Right.
I'm 100% with you on that. And you post up things and you're like, oh, no one's really liking it, right? Like, oh, it's weird. But you got to remember, just because they're not hitting the button, absolutely 100%. I mean, I do absolutely. But at a certain point, you're like, I've done enough of these things, and you're like, why is people with less talent, with all these fans, like all these whatever likes and whatnot? And so it kind of bums me out just a little bit. But until I do live art, until I'm actually there, and then people are coming up to me and then and they're just riffing on all the things I've done, you're like, holy smokes, people are actually paying I'm actually important. Like you actually like my work, and we're gonna have like conversations. I'm like, well, why do you like it? Like, how did you find out about me? And I love that. Not saying that they have to talk to me to blow up my head, but it just validates a little bit. Like, okay, cool. At least somebody's paying attention, because I put a lot of work in what I do, and I put a lot of work in what I've done for a long time,
and it makes it worth it, right? That's what
it does make it worth it, man. When somebody comes up to me and they say, yeah, I don't, and it's very odd too, because if you do stories as opposed to posts, I have a different fan base. It's very interesting. So, and I didn't realize that until a couple of years ago. I was doing like little sketches for like every morning. I was just doing like an hour sketch, and I got a lot of fans that way, but only with that. I mean, through Facebook, but it was just, they don't interact with me when I do a post, and they only interact with me when I'm doing videos. And I thought that was very, very interesting. And so, so I just want to say that I completely understand and relate, but there's a lot of kids out there that are bashful, real shy. We're outgoing. We can talk to people. We can,
I don't let that affect me, though.
No, I'm not saying that affect you.
That was not the point of me saying that.
No, of course. But I just, because I had these conversations with other, we're content creators, right? And everybody now is a content creator. Everybody's into how many people in a band, how many people do artwork, how many podcast, right?
Radio stuff.
Oh my God, skilling of us, right? But there are people that do pay attention. And not everybody's got a time to really just chime in a little bit. Say, hey, I love your stuff,
Well, but that's not, the point of this conversation wasn't to say that I don't not value it for doing, because I do it for me.
Right.
I don't need to be validated. And that's what I'm saying. That wasn't the point of,
no.
I'm not seeking validation.
No. I understand that.
Is like, there's a smoke and mirrors thing that tends to happen where, people think a certain way of you, and it's not really the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I hardly post on social media. I think it's a huge cancer to our society.
Yeah.
I think it's cancerous.
Gotcha.
I think the self-entitlement bullshit ego thing is really driven a wedge between us. Yeah, between us as humans. And
I agree.
And
there's parts of it for sure.
I feel like we're not that important in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, that's true. But just going back on that, when you're saying with the label and you're getting all those new fans and stuff like that,
it blows my mind. It's just like I'm humbled and grateful for it.
So I'm bringing it back. You probably have touched more people
that I don't know,
that you would never know,
I don't know that.
Never know. I'm pretty sure, but that's the
great.
thing. Yeah. So to be on this label, when did you get signed to this label? It's about a year or two ago.
So I put in so much effort for to self-release a vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
It was on my bucket list forever, dude.
Same.
When I got The Essence of Time done, when we got it out and people that loved it and enjoyed it, I said, you know what, this is the time to pull the trigger. I just did my taxes. I had a couple $1,000 in the bank. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to do something about this.
Yeah.
So me and Big Cat worked really hard on the layout and we got it done. And it was a pain in the ass because the company that I chose to do it, like it was like their first time doing it, and they totally almost fucked me over.
Was this
I can't remember the name of the company.
Was it from Canada or was it from the States?
States. It was from the States.
Okay.
And I'm grateful that it actually came through. And when I got my money back, and then they hit me up, right? As, like money talks, right?
Right.
And they're like, why'd you do that kind of thing? I'm like, well, you said you were going to deliver the product then, and I haven't received it in 4 to 5 months.
Wow.
Haven't had a correspondence with you in that long.
Right,
so I'm getting my money back.
Yeah, they'll be ghosting me. Yeah, for
so
sure.
I got my money back, and then they're like, I'm like, okay, if you can prove that it's at your pad, like I'll give you the money back. So they proved it. They sent me the photo and whatnot. I'm like, okay. And so I gave it to them, and then obviously they shipped it to me. And
right.
So I worked really hard on getting that specific goal checked off my checklist. Right. I did that for me.
Gotcha.
I released it on my own record label called Lost Wisdom Records. That's a great name. Well, because Madrost is Bulgarian for wisdom.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And
I didn't know that either. All right.
So that they're tongue in cheek, placating back to the Madrost definition there. So that happened, and I was a huge fan of Scott Waters' YouTube channel because he would show all these killer bands, and I'm like, you know what? He might be into us. Let me send him a vinyl, and just if he likes it, maybe he'll show it in one of his videos.
Absolutely.
That was I wasn't expecting it to get signed or
right.
I just wanted some more exposure.
Share the love. Yeah, share the love.
Some more exposure to the record. Maybe we can get another sale out of it.
Sure.
I'm blown away by what's happened since then, but that was the seed that was planted.
So he did then.
He shared it the same. He's like, dude, like this is, I can't stop listening to your record. This is amazing. Then he's like, he's like, how many did you press these? And I was like, well, I pressed 100. Yeah. I pressed more than that, but I didn't want to make it. I wanted,
more rare.
Right. So I was like, well, we pressed 100 of them, and he literally, I think he bought like half of it. Like he bought like 50 or so vinyls, and like,
dude,
well, at cost. I sent him it. Wait, it's at cost, right?
Okay. Still, that's 50 going to be out there into the world.
Yeah, and it's not collecting dust in my bedroom.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, not a box. I know how that goes. I got plenty of boxes of stuff in there.
and CDs, right? So he bought
some CDs too.
So
wonderful.
He's like, I want to buy some to get you guys more exposure on the label, and I'm like absolutely.
What label is he on? Was it
No Life Tomato Records is the name of his label.
Okay.
It's a subsidiary of Rocks Productions. I'm eternally grateful to Scott and Bill. Like you have no idea what they mean to me. So, and what they've done for my career is, I probably could never repay them.
Yeah, but I mean, if they enjoy you, that you working with them is payment enough.
Right, but I'm saying like.
True, but once again, it's a collective, right?
Right.
You're all here to help each other.
I feel I haven't done anything.
You make rad music.
Okay, well.
Yeah, you're making a music video. Like you're on a podcast still talking about it. Like you're still doing the work. There's a lot of bands I've worked with that when the album drops, that whole band breaks up, and then you never hear about it again. And I've worked with plenty of bands like that.
True. Good point, man. Good point. But to go off of your question, so that's the seed that was planted that sprouted into this beautiful relationship, friendship kind of thing, which I'm eternally grateful for. And I still have never met the man in person.
And they're from Southern California, right?
So Bill is from Southern California. Scott lives in New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And again, I've still never met Scott Waters in person. I've talked to him through the video casts and texts and Facebook and email and stuff.
Does he throw festivals or shows?
I don't think he does.
For his label. I know a lot of labels might do that. They kind of do that.
But they have connections, dude. That guy, like, they have connections. We finally got distribution in Europe. We finally got distribution in Greece and Australia, and like that's all thanks to Scott Waters, and Bill Batford.
Now,
so
are you going to be doing a repressing?
Of what?
Of any of your albums? Are they at to the point where you have to repress them now?
So they repressed our first album, Maleficent.
Gotcha. On vinyl?
Yeah. By the time this podcast comes out, for me personally, I'm going to we repressed Into the Aquatic Sector through No Life to Mono Records. He wanted to. So in essence, he's repressed almost all of our records.
Oh, well, that's amazing. Well done, man.
On CD and vinyl.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
Well, that's huge. Well, isn't that nice though? So don't you think that's better to have 4 albums underneath your belt as opposed to just having one album?
Absolutely.
Right.
And they're all different. And I had this conversation today with a mutual friend of ours, Andy Ford, and he goes, dude, you know what that means? And I said, no, what? And he goes, that means your music's selling. And I'm like, well, I'm like, I didn't think about it that way. I just thought it's kind of cool that he's taking chances on, pressing our stuff again. And somebody gives a shit about it. Do you know what I mean?
A lot of people do.
I don't know that.
Right.
So that the whole conversation we had earlier is
and also you're not on tour to have people go and like love you up. Right. So because, once again, we're in this weird spot in this position in life.
But aren't we so grateful to still be here? And like,
super grateful.
I was thinking about this too, where I don't see a lot of bands doing what I can't speak. I can speak for the rest of us, actually, what we're doing as a band.
Yeah.
Like I'm still busting my hump, promoting bands still, promoting me still,
absolutely,
promoting the record still. So I feel like I have my own niche that I've kind of like found or stumbled upon or worked hard for or built. Right.
Yeah. You didn't stumble upon nothing. Yeah.
You
this wasn't, by accident.
Well, like, kind of. I was just bored and wanted to do a podcast and wanted stories told that I wasn't getting elsewhere, right? So that's why what you do it for you, right?
Right.
Going back to our ultimate point there. But I'm at the point now where like I'm just noticing all these bands, amazing albums. I'm not going to compare theirs to ours because I think that's a personal preference thing.
Absolutely, 100%.
But they're not doing a lot with it. They have so much,
like the label
and
the personal.
They have so many
members.
tools. They have so many tools that's at their disposal that they can totally utilize.
Like social media,
interviews.
Oh, gotcha.
Like promotional wise, like doing cool rad shit with people. Or I don't see a lot of that, and maybe I'm stuck in my bubble too much. I just don't see a lot, and I'm very proud of what I personally have accomplished with my career. I'm not a young man anymore. I'm a younger man still. I'm not a young man.
Right.
But people my age haven't done half the shit I've done.
Oh, agreed.
They've gotten married, had kids, been divorced, to where like they don't have the opportunities and support that to get to a point like this. So I'm eternally grateful. And I want to thank you again for having me on do a podcast episode with you and stuff. And
grateful that you even wanted to do it.
And hopefully we can do more and more of these and learn a little bit about, all of our history and whatnot.
So, so we can wrap this up then?
Yeah.
All right. So how can people find you?
Sure. So we are on NoLifeToMetalRecords.com is the best place. I always like sending people to the label because the label supports us. When you support the label, you're supporting the label and us, right?
Absolutely.
They're not one of these labels that dick around or fuck over the band and whatnot.
Right. That's
rare. When they make money, they believe in the band, right?
Right.
And that's what you want. You want somebody that believes in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And in turn, I believe in what they do, right? So that's why
it's a symbiotic relationship.
Correct. And that's super rare. So
it is.
So go to NoLifeToMetalRecords.com. I was told by Bill when we did the music video, he posted a nice note saying this has been one of the best selling No Life to Metal record releases ever, Charring the Rotting Earth.
Wow,
so if you haven't heard it, I highly recommend people to check it out, because I'm going to quote Doro, because she quoted her one of her records as one of her favorite metal records ever. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. Because if you're not a fan of your band, and if your band isn't your number one,
my band is.
If your band is not your favorite band in the world,
I
you're
love
doing something wrong.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So I'm just going to say this. I think Charring the Rotting Earth is one of my personal favorite metal records ever.
It's a great record.
And I think
we're gonna have a link at the bottom of it.
Yeah,
too.
And I think people will enjoy it. So I want to thank you, obviously, for the almost 10 years of our friendship.
Yeah,
and,
back at you, man. I appreciate that. I get to work with you
It's probably weird, but it's probably weird though for you to work with somebody much younger than you too. You know,
I work with a lot of young bands. I work with a lot of young cats. Yeah, for sure.
It's probably a little weird.
Well, it's fun that you're my neighbor.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. And then also, it's I love that. I've been watching you grow for a long time, and I think it's great.
I didn't even know I was growing.
Well, but you know what I mean. From building temples to where you're at now. There's a big, long up and down, a lot of roads, and just to have 4 albums underneath their belt. Like, I know how hard it was just for me to get 1 album, and that was with my best friend and his brother, and I love them both very much, but it was so difficult to do, and the amount of respect I have for people that can get together and make albums, and you've made 4 and still making music on top of just releasing a music video and getting onto a label and doing these different podcasts. That's remarkable, man. So you definitely should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
I love Tanner. He's a big fan. Been a fan for a long time. And thank you again, T. And we'll definitely do this again with my equipment, and we'll get us out a little better.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope it was cool for like the first one. Definitely check out Tanner, and we'll have all the links and everything dialed in. And thank you again, brother.
Thank you, man. And just a final word. I want to thank all the Madrost fans out there in the world. You guys, I love you to death. And I want to tell you, Tony, even if you were the only Madrost fan in the world, that would still be a success for me. So thank you very much again for everything. Love you too, buddy.
All right, man.
I guess another episode. We're out of here, guys.
We're out. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cut.